Welcome to another episode of Going Homesteady. We're glad that you're with us and glad to have the opportunity to continue in this journey together as we seek to live more peaceful, calm lives. Now, I want to take you back today to the moments I was about to graduate from seminary. And I had an apartment. I was quite proud of it. I had an apartment and was finishing up with this degree. I had a good job. And all of a sudden, I realized, apart from what I believe about politics and economics and what I believe about theology, in those places, I'm really different from my neighbors. But how I think about everything else has been profoundly influenced by the culture around me. Like too many other Christians, especially as a young man, I was taking in the wisdom of this world, but thought to myself, well, because I have this careful theology and this careful economic, philosophical, political views, I had this great grid that would keep out the bad stuff of the things that I was taking from the culture, which demonstrates beyond a doubt that I was completely befuddled by the culture. That was a really dumb way to think. And at about the same time, I picked up two different books, and this was two of the books that had a deep influence on me. One was written by my friend Ken Myers. It's called All God's Children and Blue Suede Shoes. The subtitle, The Christian in Pop Culture. I commend it to you highly. It is from the Turning Point Worldview series that Crossway published. That the whole series was edited by Marvin Olasky, who used to be the editor of World Magazine, and he brought in all the best guys to write about a Christian view of pop culture, in this case. A Christian view of science, he had Nancy Pearcey write. A Christian view of literature, he had I believe it was Gene Veith, right. He wrote a couple of really good ones, including Postmodern Times. Well, Ken wrote the one on pop culture and really demonstrated to me how very much I've been influenced by pop culture. The other book was written by an unbeliever, but still had a profound impact on me. That book was called Amusing Ourselves to Death. The author was Neil Postman, who, even though he's not a believer, I would commend to you. Very good writer. And his premise there was that moving from a print ordered culture to a image ordered culture was damaging to our ability to think through different things. In fact, he took the view, interestingly, that when it came to television or movies, really the worst part of what you can see in those places were the places where they were trying to be most responsible. That is, watching a silly episode of I Love Lucy was not near as dangerous to your mindset as watching 60 Minutes, even though 60 Minutes is presented as this prestige show. But his point was very clear that images evoke feelings, whereas ideas evoke thoughts. I'll give you an example. Many of you, if you're old enough, many of you have seen the picture, Pulitzer Prize winning picture from back in the early 70s of this poor young girl, probably 10 years old, just running down the street in Vietnam, screaming and crying and naked because she has been doused with Agent Orange. When the U.S. military was trying to clear this jungle of vegetation, they poured out all this Agent Orange. It landed on her and it's burning up her skin. And I would argue that that picture had more to do with the end of the United States involvement in Vietnam than any argument given by anybody. Those pictures, those images can have a visceral effect on us. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be misleading. And so what Postman is saying is, look, if you read rather than watch, you're going to be more mentally engaged and you're going to be able to be better guarded against being misled. I love that. I mean, I ate up these 2 books like in the space of a week. They were both so good. And it motivated me to make this commitment. I thought, you know what? People all the time make commitments to getting in shape and losing weight, going to the gym and all of that. And maybe what I needed to do was put my brain on a similar kind of program. Maybe what I needed to do was get in mental or intellectual shape. So I created a program for myself where I started, instead of sitting down at the end of every evening and turning on the television, I started reading. And to be honest, because it is a process, I started reading not what you would call high literature. I was introduced to the writing of Clive Cussler, who wrote just these amazing adventure stories, and just loved those. And there was like 24 of them that I'd never read. So I read through those, and that was sort of the beginning of my getting into shape. And then I thought, okay, now that I've done that, maybe I could start reading some biographies. And I read the biography on Jonathan Edwards from Ian Murray, which was really, really good. I read Roland Bainton's Here I Stand biography on Luther. Now, I want you to understand, going back to our previous conversation about efficiency, that it wasn't just that I was committed to doing this reading. If you really want, just like with the exercise of the body and the splitting of the wood, what I wanted to get to was a place where I could relax and unwind at the end of the day, before I went to sleep, while doing something useful. And that's, if I had started off with, reading Calvin's Institutes at the beginning of this process, that would always feel like, homework from seminary, and I would not feel like I was winding down. But as I got stronger, then I could read heavier and heavier materials along the way and rest and get ready to calm and enjoy my evening as well. So that's what I want to encourage. Again, you can do this in the middle of New York City. You can do this in your apartment. You don't have to be in the stream of everything that's coming out of Hollywood. You don't have to be tugged to and fro by images, but you can train your mind. And what you'll find is it's really, really soothing. It's really, really peaceful. I started in a similar way with even the accompanying music during my reading time before bed. I started off with all the general music that I had and that I loved, and then I segued into slower, calmer, more peaceful music, and then I segued from that into classical music. And there I was. I skipped a step. I went from reading before I went to the biographies, between the reading of the junk novels, I also read some classic novels. And I remember sitting in my apartment reading Dracula while listening to the Mass in D minor, which has been, scary music. One of those memories that stuck with me. So all of these things are things that just are ways, again, to calm ourselves down, to, in a sense, unplug from the nonsense of the world around us. And what you find is it's just so much more calm and peaceful. Now I want to give you a test. And maybe you're already there. Maybe you're much better than me. But here's a good test. Here's what I noticed as I did this. I noticed that when I would go to the grocery store, and I would be in the checkout line, and I would see the gossip rags for sale there on the impulse buying section at the checkout, that I knew fewer and fewer of the people whose stories were being told. Oh, so-and-so is exposed for this. I don't know who so-and-so is. Oh, they're the star of the, well, I don't know what they're, and you know what? I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose anything. I was gaining. So let me encourage you to adopt a posture, one, where you are reading faithfully. All of us, just like going to the gym, all of us say, I'd really like to read, but I just don't have the time. Do you know what that means? What that means is I'd really like to read, but I'm not willing to commit any time to it. I really like to read, but I like the other things I'm doing instead of reading more. It's kind of like when I said I'd really love to be able to play electric guitar. And I would. And I said I would do anything to be able to play electric guitar except learn how. I'm just not willing to do that. Which means at the end of the day, I obviously don't want this that badly. Same thing with our decisions about what we're reading or whether we're reading. You can do this. You make the decision. Lisa told me some years ago, very insightful point. She said, you know, everybody has the same number of hours every day. Everybody. So make the time. Now, one of the ways that you make the time, and for me, when I started out this program, was I set aside time every evening before I went to bed. I knew when I was going to go to bed. I go to bed every evening, and I would set aside time then. So it just became a habit, a kind of almost a ritual. I would read typically in bed, and it would help me calm down, help me quiet down, and then I would be able to sleep so much better. And in fact, I made a decision during this time period to ratchet down from 8 hours of sleep at night to 7 hours of sleep at night and see if I'd miss that extra hour. And I didn't. So that was really a wise blessing for me. But another way that you can do this, I learned again from my friend Ken Myers. Ken, by the way, in addition to writing this great book, All God's Children in Blue Suede Shoes, is the head of Mars Hill Audio. Ken pretty much invented podcasting before, like 15 years before there were other podcasters. He interviews important people, and he's just a wonderful guy. I had him when I was editor of Table Talk, writing a monthly column for us for many years. And in addition, for a time, he was the voice of Renewing Your Mind Radio. He would do the intros and the outros for several years. But one thing he said to me, I was on the phone with him, and I heard kids in the background. I said, and he said to me, "Oh, sorry about all the noise, but today is a deer day." I said, "A deer day? What's a deer day?" He said, "Well, in our family, every now and again, we don't plan it, we try to do it spontaneously, but we have these deer days. And what it means is, why it's called Deer Day is, it's drop everything and read. Drop everything and read. It's spelled D-E-A-R, Deer Day. And so the kids were instructed to drop everything and read for that day. You don't have to do your math homework. You don't have to do your science homework. You need to drop everything and read. And I really think all of us should have those kinds of days. Maybe you could connect it to, the weather. Isn't it warm and comforting to cuddle up with a blanket and some hot chocolate when it's blistery and windy outside? Those are great times for reading. So just let me encourage you. Oh, by the way, something else in terms of picking good books. Lisa found this. Old Time Country Wisdom and Lore, Thousands of Traditional Skills for Simple Living. You see, I've told you from the beginning of this journey that it is a journey, that we're not experts. But you know how we become experts? We study. And one of the ways we study is we read. There is a saying, I'm not sure who it is who's first said this, but basically it goes like this, and it's very good for the beginning of the year here in early 2024. The difference between you at the turn of this year and the end of 2024 will principally involve the people that you've talked to and met and the books that you've read. Those are the two most important things that have the opportunity to change you. Now, I'd like to add Going Homesteady into that list that can have a beneficial impact on you. But one of the ways to do that is to drop everything and listen. Deal. I just made that up. Excuse me. Also, when you're sick, it's a great time to drop everything and read. But drop everything and listen. You can do that by subscribing. Click the bell and you'll get a reminder every time we put a new episode out. If you like this particular episode, I want you to like it. I want you to leave a comment. I'm asking that you would be good enough to subscribe and share this video. Link it on your social media. If you've enjoyed this conversation, go into your Instagram or your Twitter or whatever it is, and share it there. Just encourage your sphere of influence to give a listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to deer and to deal.